Ladies and gentlemen, the articles have come out saying that the government has not done enough to help Singaporeans to cope with the cost of living, especially in food and housing. And there's a lot of social media grumbling right now. Let's analyze this and see whether this is true and should the government do much more to help fellow Singaporeans, shall we? Let's watch on. So budget 2025 has a lot of giveaways, and yet we are seeing quite a lot of people lamenting that it's inadequate. Are these comments fair or not fair, true or not true? Let's watch on. So Prime Minister Lawrence Wong has issued a lot of giveaways, and this is a snapshot of what is going to be giveaway along the year all the way to 2026. There's a lot of rebates, vouchers, top-ups, vouchers, rebate, cash, credits, rebates, vouchers, and so on, right? I think if you go online, there are actually now websites that help you analyze how much is your giveaway because it really depends on people. But safe to say that's quite significant for every individual. A survey has been done and has a striking, surprising outcome. So 55% of the people surveyed say that budget 2025 of nearly $124 billion in spending, that includes a lot of vouchers and giveaways, is not enough to cover the elevated prices from food and housing. And this is the breakdown of the survey. So there is a mixed view, right? So the yellow bar represents people who think that the measures are adequate to cover Singaporeans to cope with the rising costs. And the pink one represents people who don't think it's enough. And there's a margin of error at 3%, blah, blah. So if you look at the age group, the younger people are actually much more grateful, followed by the older people, but the working class are the ones that are probably deemed inadequate and things like that. And that's understandably why, because they face with the breadwinner responsibility of taking care of the household budget and things like that. So is this true or not true? I think I'll just give you my personal comment and my reflection. You may not like to hear my comments, but I think my comments is pretty fair. Number one is it's probably true that it's inadequate to cover every single rise in expenses and things like that, because this time around the inflation is very significant, and it might be true that it can cover maybe 1 year of it, but the price increase is for many years. So a help of 1 year may not be enough, and there are multi-years to cover. And I think a lot of people are very skeptical whether this kind of giveaway can last for a long time. So it's probably true there is some inadequacy there. But for those people who think that I'm here to KB with everybody, let's see my balanced view. I think it's important for me to share with you this point. I know you probably don't care what I say. You probably would deny what I say. But I, as an economist that has covered this thing since 2022, cost of living escalation is a mega global phenomenon. It's not just a phenomenon in Singapore. I watch over the whole rise in inflation since 2022, and safe to say, I've been highlighting that this is a global phenomena. And I travel a lot globally. The price increase in Singapore is also experienced in Malaysia, is also experienced in Europe, is also experienced in Middle East, experienced in US, experienced in a lot of places and things like that. So this is a global phenomenon. Now, before you start accusing the Singapore government of causing all this inflation and things like that, I don't think the Singapore government is able to cause such a huge phenomenon in Singapore. But this is really an influence that come globally. So who is the number one culprit of this inflation that we're feeling in Singapore and in Malaysia as well? Well, there's one person you should blame. They're categorically, unequivocally true that he's the cause of it. That's this gentleman. This gentleman caused all the inflation that all of us are feeling right now. His name is Jerome Powell. He is the Federal Reserve Chairman. And during the pandemic of 2020 and 2021, he printed so much money to kickstart the economy that was shut down in US that many central banks across the world also follow what he did, and the printing of money was severe, very, very severe. And as a result, the inflation across the world took off in a very big way, and you're still feeling a lot of it because of him. This is a very interesting GIF that is very popular across the internet in the finance world, that is just massively printing money. In the past, printing of money literally means you actually have to go and get paper, get the printing press to print the money. So the process is a lot more painful and difficult. But now to print money is all computerized, right? You just add the number of zeros and things like that onto the MyTree system. Of course, it's more complicated than this, but you just add a few zeros, and the system will take care of itself. So printing of money is actually very easy nowadays, and they have massively done it for 2 years. And guess what? The whole world's prices shot up to the moon, and as a result, all of us are feeling the bite right now. This is where I also want to highlight that every time there's a problem of this magnitude, two entities always get a blame. Number one is government, the number two is God, right? A person get injured by falling down on the street, he will blame the government for not making the street, proper enough, and then they will blame God for letting him fall down and things like that. It's a common to get blame for everything. So government and God is always get blamed. Today we are excluding God out of the discussion, but government always get blamed for every problem you are facing. And is it fair? Well, it's fair because they are in control. They can resolve every problems that you're facing. So what? This is what people will feel, and this is what people actually think as well. Now, let me say this: inflation really bites. Okay, inflation really bites, and inflation bites even at the wealthy, let alone the masses. So people are well-to-do that I know are also cutting back on their expenses, let alone the masses. So maybe let's not talk about other people. I'm sure many of you will deem Mr. Lu as a slightly higher income and things like that. But in the past, I used to eat a lot of steamed fish, for example. I used to eat a lot of crab. You all know I really enjoy good food, as you can see from my videos on restaurants and things like that. But nowadays, I certainly take a lot less steamed fish. Steamed fish is really very expensive right now. Crabs prices are to the roof. I also take less crab. I think over the last 6 months or so that I only take maybe one crab meal. Maybe last time I would take once every month or maybe even once every 2 weeks. So right now, last 6 months I probably take one crab meal. I suddenly drive a lot less. Not that cars itself is expensive, that is true. Petrol is expensive, that is true. But the one thing that kills me is parking. Parking is really expensive right now. So whenever I'm in Singapore right now, I actually drive a lot less because parking is insane. I used to take a lot of Grab. Nowadays, I also take less Grab because Grab prices are also to the roof. So what I do now is I take a lot of MRTs. And lo and behold, I didn't realize that Singapore got so many MRT lines right now. And it's quite funny. Sometimes you see happen to see me in an MRT station. We'll be one blur, Mr. Lu, trying to figure out which line to go. And there's so many lines in Singapore. And I know I'm very swaku, but nowadays I actually take a lot more MRTs. I spend a lot less in Singapore, and I spend a lot more in JB as comparison. I'll enjoy life a lot more in JB. In Singapore, I'll just go to the bare minimum. And if this hits me at this level, I'm sure at the masses, a lot of people will be hit a lot more. And I even know of, as I said, many rich people that's cut down a lot. So inflation really bites across. This is a view that not everybody likes to hear, but I think it's a fair statement. I think our government is there to help, but their help comes from everybody. Now, you don't think of the money from the government comes from the government. The government's money comes from the rest of the country, whether be it corporates, be individuals, GST, income tax, whatsoever. So the government is a redistributor of taxes. And sorry, the government is a redistributor of tax revenue. So the more they give to people, the more they have to tax and take money away from people. That's a realism that everybody have to come to terms with. If the government have to give more money to every one of people, then the more they have to take money from you and me, right? Now, a lot of people will say the following. Very simple. To be a government is so easy. Tax the rich and give it to the poor. I'm poor, so tax the rich, right? Tax like people like Mr. Lu, tax people like Mr. Tan, Mr. So, Mr. Chin, whatever, right? All these rich people, go and tax them all and just give it to the poor. I think that's a common answer that everybody would want the government to do. But I want to also give you another realistic view that the rich have a lot of options. You tax them overboard or tax them a bit too much, they park their money elsewhere. They park their business elsewhere. They transfer their operation elsewhere. They just, reshuffle their invoices and all this, and Singapore lose out. The number of employment will go down. The rich have all the options in the world. It is the masses and the poor that has no option. So it is easier to tax the masses and the poor, not so easy to tax the rich. And we better get to realize this before we frighten the rich away from Singapore and they go elsewhere and we got no one to tax and no one to give us jobs and money to. So I think this is a realism that everybody has to come to terms with. This is also a very emotional comment I see across the social media. Get the PAP out, no, hoi nang see that kind of thing, right? Just bring the opposition, right? So things will become better. Plus a lot of comments in, I don't know whether you think that the opposition can do any better. I think our opposition is okay. I don't think they are washed out. Maybe 10, 20, 30 years ago, a lot of them are pretty bad. But I'm not too sure the opposition can do any better. I didn't hear anything that they can do to make it better. Do you have any idea how we can cope with this better? So, but whenever we ask questions like this, everybody says, I don't care. Inflation is always the government fault, always the government fault, always the government fault. Oh my God, very emotional topic, right? It's something that has gone beyond logic, and everybody just say it is the government's fault, right? They increase GST, they got high salary, they do this, they do whatsoever. It's a very, very emotional topic, and I understand. Okay, I really understand. While watching all the social media comments and things like that, I didn't bother to cut and paste all the comments. They are crying father about the whole situation, grumbling at the government and things like that. There are some comments that I think are quite interesting. So let me just say this, right? So there's this person, it's called Joy, say, no one owes a living. Want more money, you go and work more, right? Another gentleman called Anthony, only a nation of beggars looks to budget to counter the rising cost of living. Another person called Charles say, wow, there are so many people here waiting for more handouts. How much is enough to this low life, right? So basically, there are people who realize that we owe ourselves a living, right? Nobody owes you a living, not the government, not anybody. Nobody owes you a living. We owe ourselves a living. Looking at all the giveaways and things like that, balancing all the budgets and things like that, I think the government has done a lot already. Whether is it enough or not is subjective. Of course, they can always throw more money at the problem, right? No one will ever have enough money. They throw $1 or $2 or $5 billion more, you will still say it's not enough. Who will ever say it's enough, right? But I think our government has done a lot. I've benchmarked across all the other countries I've seen, I've traveled to. The government has done very little. But of course, you say we are Singapore, we are supposed to do a lot, right? That's okay. I told you it's an emotional topic. I think for those people who care to listen, I think it's time to stand our own feet. It's not easy. I didn't say it's easy, but it's time to stand our own feet. I think the government's attention should be put at places where really they have got very little options. There are many such segments: the sick, the old, the handicapped, the underprivileged minorities in life and things like that. That I'm just saying that there are people who really cannot stand on their own feet. The people who are in a hospital, the people who are handicapped whatsoever. I think they really need our help. Okay, but those people who stay in condos, stay in landed property, those people who stay in big houses, drive big cars, hold high jobs, a lot of them also cowpay. Uh, I I think you understand what I'm getting at. I just offer two advice. Number one is I think we need to be wiser in our wealth management. I started this 1965 movement since 2015, encouraging everybody to manage your wealth well. Why is it so? So that you can buy a bigger house, so that you can buy a bigger car, and what? No, is so that when you face with a time like this, you are better equipped to handle it. It's time that, we work hard or harder. We train and retrain ourselves to the latest trends, latest technology of the world, and save well, invest well. I spend so much time, so much effort trying to teach and educate everybody in this space. And for those people who have done well, congratulations. Those who haven't, instead of grumbling, maybe you want to start, in a good footing. This is where I also encourage everybody to spend wiser. It's important for us to look for cheaper alternatives in life. I give you a few examples. Number one is Johor Bahru, right? It is so near, one bus away. Okay, in future, one train ride away. For us to get there, it's actually very easy. Buy your medicine there, buy your food there, buy your grocery there, enjoy a better life there, right? So it is so much more cheaper than Singapore. And I cannot believe there are people who make comments and throw stones at Mr. Lu for giving this advice. He said that we should only support local Singapore business. Go slap yourself, man. Yeah, right. So even in Singapore, many of our businesses take materials and raw materials from overseas. Wow. So I think it's important for us to realize that come to cost of living, we got to look for cheaper alternatives, and it is a free world. So the other very interesting thing, for example, that we can take advantage of is many rich company like Shopee, Lazada, and TikTok, they have got huge discount on certain days of the month. For example, the double-digit day, they give 3 to 4 days of huge discounts, to the point that they are bleeding in this month. In the middle of the month, they also give discount. End of the month, they also give huge discount. The vouchers they give are insanely high, and we should take advantage of them. Many of things are very affordable, very cheap, and you should explore some of this. So these are just some examples. I'm sure some of you can find even better examples. Let's be wiser to look for cheaper alternatives than to be so, fixated that I'm faced with an inflation problem. There's no alternative. Our lifestyle has to change to adopt to the new realities of life. That is unfortunate. In the past, rich people can stay in landed houses, rich people can stay in condo. Now, people who are rich can only afford a small condo or even a HDB only. But that's realities of life. It's okay. But one thing I'd like to encourage everybody is please don't commit to expensive lifestyles, right? Because once you commit to expensive lifestyle, expensive condo, landed houses, expensive cars, costly holidays, and things like that, then you are stuck, right? You are stuck. And when you are hit with a economic crisis like the Great Inflation, recession, whatsoever, you will feel the pain and the bite. So it's important for us to adapt to new realities of life, give our lives a lot of flexibility, so that when I hit by all this, there's no problem. We can face it. In conclusion, okay, I would like to state something which is actually not a Christian phrase, and I don't even know where this thing came from. When I was in secondary school, I came from a mission school, and there was a teacher who says that God will only help those who help themselves. By the way, this is not biblical. This is not a Christian philosophy. I don't even know which philosophy is this. But this phrase today came to my mind and basically says that life helps those who help themselves. I think that's a better phrase, right? And these are times that we got to stand up and help ourselves. I think there is a lot of help that came from the government already. Stop hoping that more will fall from the heaven or fall from the government. I think we just got to stand our own feet, adapt ourselves to new realities, minimize some of those costly lifestyle that we can have, and pursue a better, wiser wealth management so that you can cope with things. And when pain and emotion subsides, let's come to reality and just realize that life will only help those who help themselves. Let's stand our own feet and take care of this problem ourselves. This is my view. You may not agree with me, but let's hear your comments in the comment section, and I'll see you in a day or two. Bye bye.